welcome everyone. Great to see some of your familiar faces and maybe the odd face that's not. I'm just going to say right off the top here, like we're going to start to lose the masks here. But I thought I'd take this opportunity to remind you that we do have some masks still for sale for your, in this case now, I don't need it anymore, so I'll put it on so I can take it off. But you'll want this for your box that you pass on to your grandchildren, eh? Or maybe not.
I'm still going to use mine when I go flying.
Like exactly.
Get into an aircraft just to avoid the average crud you get.
And in stores, I tend to wear it, and I see a lot of stores still the staff are wearing it. So out of, if nothing else, respect for them, but also I think self-defense. It might help hold down the flu and cold problems, but anyway. And we have some t-shirts still, and that's good to buy those just because you look so cool in them when you wear them. And people will just look at you and go, wow, look at that guy, it's really cool. So we have that available. We had a couple events happen. Oh, this is number 282 meeting, by the way, which is a fairly serious number. You can only do so many in a year. And that just goes to show that we've been around almost as long as Newfoundland. That's a jab at John, by the way. But we had the Circle Drive fun. We went around the Pacific Marine Circle Drive, a great success. Lots of fun. I think we had well over 30 cars and 2 people in most of them. Like, that's a good turnout, folks. So that was good. Jim Henshaw was at the opening of the VW Volkswagen ID4, sort of the public weenie roast ribbon cutting. And the next day, he and I met up and went for a test drive. The technology didn't quite work out. He tried to broadcast live, but we did do it. This vehicle's in transit. It's touring Canada. So we were one of the first people to test drive it in all of Western Canada, apparently. So that was fun. It was a great car. Check it out. Contact VW Victoria. Matt down there is well-informed and keen, young. Go and support him. Good vehicle, I think. Another thing I wanted to mention, Arno Peninen, our very own, many of you know him, drives now a Model Y. He was on a trip to Lake Kananaskis, I think it was. He got caught with a flat tire, a big hole that couldn't be fixed with his temporary repair thing, 30 kilometers from civilization, and he had trouble. It took him 3 days. So he has a story anyway, and apparently James Locke has forwarded that to the higher ups in the Tesla organization. So it'll be interesting. I'm not sure if we've published any of that, but someday we will tell you more about it, because I think a few of us, when we're talking about remote driving, are concerned about things like flat tires and road service. I would have called BCAA myself, but he was out of cell phone range, which is a challenge. Anyway, that's not a fault of Tesla. Anyhow, he's got a story to tell there, and that was kind of interesting. I ran into him. He donated 4 winter tires for the club to auction off. I think of doing it maybe in late September, October. We'll get back to you then. If anybody thinks about it, what we can do with them. I think they're 19-inch, and they're those fancy Norwegian, Scandinavian, can't even remember the name of them, winter tires, really top quality. So he's donated those to the club. I got them now in my garage, and we'll be auctioning them off to raise money for the club. I think that's all I've got right now. I've probably forgotten something. We've got 2 guests today, and in between the 2, Heather's got an announcement for our next exciting event. So I think we should dive into it here. We have John Seary from Newfoundland with the Drive Electric, and Glenn, our very own Glenn, is going to lead us through it. So Glenn, take it away, and looking forward to this.
Right on. Thank you, David. So among the things that we do here at VicEVA, we do public outreach, we do things for our members, we get involved in governments, and on our non-government side, we also reach out to other EV associations and like-minded sort of organizations across country. And I met John a year and a half ago through a connecting organization, Electric Vehicle Society. And we participate there on an EV leaders group and sometimes on the government engagement side. So John's been an excellent guy on there. He always has something interesting to say and some thoughtful things to talk about. And so we thought it'd be kind of cool to get sort of what's happening, who he is, what's happening on the rock, and so you can tell all of us here on the other rock on the other coast. So take it away, John.
Thank you very much, Glenn. Such a kind words. I don't know if my wife or my mother would agree with you on everything you said, but there it is. Great to see everybody there, and delighted and honored to be asked to present. So Drive Electric NL is our organization. We're a registered not-for-profit, and a like-minded EV owner, Joe Butler, and I decided to formalize our interests in advocacy for electric vehicles for Newfoundland and Labrador a number of years ago. And we came up with Drive Electric NL and started putting some credence for the efforts we're making. So where is Newfoundland and how are we doing? Well, I do have some pictures to show, and I do it in the form of a presentation I can show. Let's see if I can make this work. Now, this does a very funny thing. If we do the slideshow, we start that. So if I go full screen with my slideshow, does it actually, okay, do you see that as a full screen photo?
Yes, we do.
Okay, perfect. I also realized that it might cut off the right-hand side of the photo in your default view, and there's one slide where that might make a whole difference to what I'm trying to say. So I'm not sure if I've got an adjustment for that. There it is. So what you're looking at is quite near where I live. It's part of the coast about 15 minutes from the capital city, St. John's. Every now and again, we have an iceberg float through, though I haven't seen any yet this year. And this was taken shortly after I took delivery of my Tesla Model X. That's the signature edition, and the VIN on it ends in 01. So I may have what I believe is the first one that was made for Canada, which might give you an idea as to how long I've been doing this. Although we haven't had 282 meetings, we've certainly been interested in it a long time. A lot of people think that Newfoundland is that picture in the top left corner, but that's actually taken from space in the wintertime. The right-hand shot there gives you an idea of a fair amount of what you'd see around here. That's actually my house before I got the roof done. But we're coastal, lots of coastal communities, originally from fishing, but lots of other reasons now. But it's a fairly sparse geographic population, which means that justifying installation of fast chargers is difficult for the amount of population that you reach. The bottom picture is a bit of a wide view of downtown St. John's, taken from Signal Hill. For those of you who want to visit someday, there's a lot more to the province than St. John's, but it gives you an idea as to what you're going to run into. As a province, we have our fishing industry, but we also have an on-again, off-again oil and gas industry. So for me, back in February 2013, I had the opportunity finally to test drive a Model S and put in my reservation for my Model X. And to do that, I took the opportunity while in Toronto to drop by the mall and do all that. Since then, Tesla has expanded their locations gradually eastward, first to Montreal, then to Quebec City, and now more recently with the establishment very soon of a service center and perhaps sales center in Halifax, but still nothing in Newfoundland. After putting down that reservation, I consoled myself with collecting Hot Wheel cars, visiting the Tesla factory in California in 2015, where unbeknownst to me, I met Rolf, and Silke wasn't with him at the time, but we would again meet up a year later at the end of their Cross Canada tour. Excuse me for a second, my dog can't decide what side of the door to be on. She'll be back in 5 minutes looking to get in. Finally, the big day. Nice delivery experience. And I now had the appearance of the imaginary car that everybody in my friends and family had to listen about for 3.5 years, yet never actually see. And the first thing I did was promptly try to break their necks to show how launches in insane mode would work. This arrival of this car did not go unnoticed by the media, and we realized that we had quite a lot of leverage and publicity, if we ever wanted it, to get the attention of anybody and everybody that we needed to. This dates from 2016, I believe, and Joe and I decided that we'd make use of this ease of publicity. Quite a novelty, trading in the gas guzzler for your electric car. Shortly afterwards, my wife Adrian got her Nissan Leaf, which at the time was a 2-year-old car when we bought it as a used vehicle, because the only electric cars that were sold from the dealerships here at the time were the Volt. Our Nissan dealerships, of which there's 3 or 4 across the island, have sort of steadfastly refused to get into selling the Leaf. We did a few road trips. That's an older picture, but we have 4 kids and they fit very nicely into this car. We're about to take off on our 5th road trip on Thursday, and they are just an awful lot of fun, going all around Atlantic Canada and into the northeastern US. So Joe and I started piping up a bit more about the need for charging infrastructure. We needed the utilities to get on side. We needed the provincial government to get on side to encourage EV adoption. We needed everything. Shortly after this picture was taken by CBC, I complained about, argued about the fact that there was an awful lot of people that had a lot to say about electric vehicles to the negative, but actually knew very little about them. And one person in particular was a former mayor of St. John's, a fellow by the name of Andy Wells, who had very, very colorful, outspoken history in his public life. And for a period of time, he was also the chair of our Public Utilities Board, the regulator for what the electric utilities could do and invest in and spend on. And a few years previous to this picture, the city of St. John's was entertaining the idea of purchasing 2 used Chevy Volts to use in parking enforcement, which would be a fantastic use for them. And that looked like it was going to go ahead until Andy Wells piped up. He wasn't even on the council at the time and shamed him into such an arrangement. And that was the end of that, and setting vehicle adoption back a year or 2. So in front of the CBC reporter, I said, I'm sick and tired of these old guys going on and saying how they're just a gimmick. And Andy Wells' own expression was yuppie bling. And I said, I'd love to debate one in the car sometime. I looked over at Gavin, the reporter, and I said, go get Andy Wells and invite him out for a ride in my car, and I'll debate him on electric vehicles. You report it in the back seat. He did that. He actually looked with quite a grin on his face when I suggested it. And a few weeks later, we went for that ride, and we debated a bunch of points back and forth, and I cordially responded to everything he had to say, which was a lot of FUD, fear, uncertainty, and doubt. And I pointed out to him after a while that the car that he had in his own driveway was about the same cost as a basic Tesla and had none of the features that I was currently operating with, including autopilot, as we drove down the road and I spoke to him. The interview was aired on a Monday morning leading up to the 8 o'clock news. And I was told the day that it happened that the executive from Newfoundland Hydro, one of our 2 energy utilities, or Crown Corporation, sat in their cars in the parking lot prior to going into work to listen to the whole thing for fear of missing how it would all turn out. And shortly after that aired, I had a call to my cell phone asking if I could come in and meet with the executive of Newfoundland Hydro and talk about electric vehicle adoption in the province. And that meeting started a good, solid relationship that we now enjoy with both utilities, where they consult with us and we ask them for help to achieve electric vehicle adoption here, with the understanding that as a Crown corporation and a very visible energy utility, those two organizations are limited on some of the things they can do and not do, or shouldn't be seen doing, that we have no problem whatsoever with doing. So that has helped out a lot. And in fact, because of that Andy Wells argument or deliberate debate, we'll call it, more has been done for electric vehicle adoption because of that. So it backfired for him. Do you like our Site C? This is our Site C. Isn't that just a lovely thing?
What a beauty.
Muskrat Falls is our provincial embarrassment. I don't know. It was a good idea. It's just that it was executed by people who all came from oil and gas. And if you looked at the numbers of what it was meant to cost, and then the people who were put in place to run it, you would start to wonder if there was a movement afoot to make sure that electricity was very expensive here. Anyway, I won't bother getting into that. What is there is the numbers down the bottom. So that dam will produce, when it's commissioned, which should happen any time now, haha, about 5 terawatt hours of power per year. There is a domestic need of about 2 terawatt hours, of which is currently being generated with diesel, originally bunker C and so on. So it will replace an aging gas turbine. The two undersea links, the Muskrat Falls in Labrador, so the reach to the island and then to markets beyond, it has 2 undersea connections that were put in by Emera in return for 1 terawatt hour of the power for Muskrat Falls, which is Nova Scotia's power utility. And that left a surplus of about 2 terawatt hours for future use and growth. And their plan had been to sell that to the New England states. However, with the increase in the use of natural gas in the US over the time that Muskrat Falls has been built, that market has gone down to a fraction, to about 1/4 of what we would pay domestically for the power. So our argument, suggestion, recommendation is to look at electrifying all the passenger vehicles in the province, of which there are about 390,000 registered passenger vehicles. So that's not a beater that's left in the old backyard. That's the ones that people pay each year to re-register and license. With an average consumption of 5,000 kilowatt hours per year, which that's from Natural Resources Canada, but I've verified that kind of usage on our own cars. We would need about just under 2 terawatt hours of power per year. And that would be a sustainable domestic market for that surplus power that would result in just under 240 million of new energy sales per year for the province. And you say, well, where's all that money going to come from? It would replace, or mostly replace, the $900 million worth of gasoline that's imported into the province each year. It's a real neat thing to be able to suggest that, because it solves a lot of the issues with Muskrat Falls, which right now, if they don't do something, will require everybody's power bills to start to climb for sure. The project went way over budget, as they do. And you'd think that there would be at least a couple of people kicked out on their butts, and I think they just took it upon themselves to leave. But moving to electric vehicles, well, we hit all of our climate change targets, which a lot of people feel are important, and unfortunately not enough people feel it's important. The average family will save between $3,000 and $5,000 a year, depending on their driving needs. And we then basically replace a imported product with a domestically produced one. So we use that sort of information and that kind of argument when we go and look for support to encourage the adoption of electric vehicles and all the other measures that are required to get them on the road here. It's interesting though, that those numbers and argument, the average person on the street just doesn't comprehend it. They just can't follow it, which is too bad. But it certainly puts you ahead when you're making a presentation to our Public Utilities Board to deal with, measures that would help or hinder electric vehicle adoption. And we've been pretty visible. Top left is talking to the Premier of Newfoundland just a year or so ago, just before we had our election, and he decided he wasn't going to run anymore. I've been bugging him for a while to come out for a ride, and we did that. They took the opportunity to announce that they had a green license plate program and presented us with the first one that was made, or the sample, which is in my hand there, which after that picture was taken, some assistant came up and quietly took it back from me, and they've never seen any sign of it since. We have been on the media so frequently I lose track, but what's really nice is that we have at our lunch hour program on CBC is a phone-in show for anybody that calls in with questions on a particular subject, and we've been the guests on that 3 times now, every year or so. And what's nice to see is the caliber of questions has steadily improved each time we do it. And now we're getting not, well, does this make sense, or if I may, the questions that are coming in is, my next car is going to be electric. Can you tell me a bit about what I should expect? Which is great to see. Bottom left corner is Joe and I presenting to the Public Utilities Board on EV adoption as a measure for rate mitigation for Muskrat Falls. And that's a very formal environment. It's sort of set up like a courtroom. There's about 60 or 70 people in attendance. There's various parties represented with legal counsel for all of them. We're looking at the back of the head of our consumer advocate who's appointed by the government to, won't anybody think of the children kind of idea. It's won't anybody think of the ratepayers. But that guy is also admired my car and realized that these things make sense. So I know I know when he's grandstanding, and I know what he truly believes. We presented, we were given a 20-minute slot. We used almost an hour. And when I was done, we like to show that every electric vehicle on the road will put $500 a year towards rate mitigation. So we had these bumper stickers made up that says, this electric vehicle contributes $500 a year to rate mitigation. Let's keep our rates low. Drive electric in Newfoundland, Labrador. And when we were finished presenting, I had started the presentation by pointing out and acknowledging that the only electric vehicle owners in the room were me, Joe, and my wife at the back of the room, because there was only 3 EVs out in the parking lot. And at the end of it, I said, I expect after speaking to you today that you're all going to make EVs your next car. So here's a bumper sticker for it, and proceeded to pass one out to everybody in the room. So suffice to say, the Public Utilities Board is not going to forget what EVs are and how important they are. And I've been told by people at both utilities and the regulator that that is indeed true. They certainly got the message, which is great. But we still had some work to do. Can you see the very right hand of the screen with St. John's and a blue dot on it?
Yep.
Yeah.
That's your one charging station?
No, that's just the iPad. It shows you where you are currently. That's not a charging station. Yeah, at the end of 2020, we got our first. Yeah, so over a course of about 4 years, we started bugging our ministers of energy and the utilities and so on. And they eventually got the message. it's a bit of a small town. The Minister of Energy, we used to sit on the Chamber of Commerce with me, so she knows who I am. She knows who my wife is, and that sort of thing. And so when they had the big public announcement of putting 14 chargers across the province, which had been delayed several times, I started to ask her afterwards for something else, and she blurted out, "That's 4 years of bugging me for those chargers, John Seary. Would you please leave me alone?" Anyway, I got a text late on a Wednesday evening from one of my contacts at Newfoundland Hydro. He said the charger in Holyrood is ready to be tested out. Is there any chance you can go out there tomorrow and check it? In the previous few months, I had worked with the president of Newfoundland Labrador Hydro and eventually with her husband as well, showing them my car and encouraging them to get one. And they'd gone ahead with the purchases of Model X. And she had only taken delivery of it a month or so before. And that's a very key step for us. When we have the executive of the utilities driving electric vehicles, suddenly a whole bunch of problems disappear. So that particular night, the text came in at around 9:30, quarter to 10. I said, "Oh, heck, I'm going out and doing that right now." So this is the better part of 11 o'clock at night, plugged into, what's behind me is closed. Took that picture, published it on Drive Electric Now, and texted it to the president of Newfoundland Hydro with the simple phrase, "I beat you. I got here first." And that became the first public DCFC charging session in the province after 4 years of work. Thank you, Glenn.
You're carrying on here though, aren't you?
On what?
Sorry, you have more to say. I didn't want to interrupt.
Oh yeah, no, just a little bit more. So the blue dots represent the first chargers that have gone across, and as of right now, there's just one left in Quarterbrook to be energized. They're just waiting on some right of way or easements or something like that. They're all installed and ready to go. A couple of troubleshooting steps. As it was so succinctly put out to me by the people at Hydro, who are 100% behind getting this done, they have EVs or are going to have an EV very soon, is we put out 14 chargers along 1,000 kilometers of road in the middle of a pandemic and over the winter. You are going to have delays. In the case of these chargers, they were purchased and delivered and then held in storage during most of the pandemic. So the first thing that they needed to do was a firmware update over cellular data, which is a very long, tedious process. A couple of hardware issues, which were covered obviously under warranty, but still had the logistics of getting on site to get to them. And there was at least 1 or 2 sites where they had to boost the cellular signal for them to work. Because the long and short of it is, along the Trans-Canada Highway in Newfoundland, for a good portion of this, there is nothing. The light green dots represent the next 19 that Newfoundland Power and Newfoundland Hydro jointly will be doing. They're splitting that equally depending on their areas of coverage. And that includes 3 going across Labrador at the top. Now, you'd need a pretty long range car for those to work, but it's a start. So what you will see then once those are put in place is ease of getting around to the vast majority, 95% of the island of population will be within a few hundred kilometers of your nearest DCFC. So if you want to come and tour in an electric vehicle and using our 98% renewable grid, you'll be able to do it. However, on the ground, we still lag. That Nissan Leaf, I don't see a single Nissan Leaf in the province newer than 2017. There's nothing here, and none of the dealerships are selling it. Our Volkswagen dealership is ready to sell EV, but we won't get allocated anything on the ID4 until next year. Lots of Teslas around because they are going to sell and ship here. And in presenting and educating to the dealers here, to the Chevy dealer here, it was a fun presentation to do where I talked a bit about EVs and the benefits and what I drive, and then we looked at the Bolt and I explained the benefits and the range and some of the features, and then I asked the room, 16 people, salespeople, service manager, what's the interest in EVs here? What are you guys seeing? What's coming in the door? And there was a general shaking of heads and people saying, no, there's no interest. Nobody wants to get this stuff. Nobody's interested in buying them. And then the next image I showed, it was a tractor trailer with 7 Model 3s being trucked into St. John's, and you can see a visible landmark of one of the bridges as you enter the city right in front of it. And I said, this was taken last week, Thursday evening. That's the Paddy's Pond Bridge. And that's 7 Model 3s that were just sold in this city last week. Why? How many bolts did you guys sell? And the effort to shock and wake them up into action, I would like to think worked, because they now stock the Bolt there, and they have had me in several times to do more stuff on EVs, and we've actually done a really nice video with their efforts to talk about how the benefits of EV adoption and so on. So that's been great to see. Lots of fun at first with the Tesla without local, well, and mobile service, but what we were doing initially was just driving back to Montreal for a service visit periodically. Lots of open road, but the picture in the lower left was an example of the things that you see when you do a charging stop that you would never ever get to do with a gas stop. We stopped in Edmundston, New Brunswick. We plugged in at the 4 Points Sheraton, who had some level 2 charger right in front of the front entrance. And the staff there were quite happy for us to do that, and then said there is a water slide that they put up for Canada Day. And that's my daughter there taking a run down this thing. It must have been 1 kilometer long. She was at it for several hours. You'd never have this experience in a gas car. It just wouldn't have happened. We would have pulled into a gas station on the highway. We would have been force-fed some chips and pop and stuff and sent on our way. So it's a real good indication of the fun that you can have with an EV road trip. And the people that you get to meet. So I can't believe how many people I've gotten to meet because of driving an EV. And those of you in the group will recognize Rolf, Silka, and the dog, whose name escapes me for the moment. Being asked to drive Elizabeth May around for a couple of days when she was here most recently. That was a lot of fun. And just lower right picture is sort of a representative sample. Every time I come back to the car, if I'm parked anywhere where there's a workplace, any of these industrial sites that I look after, whether it's for shipbuilding work, maintenance work, fabrication, any of the things to do with the oil and gas industry, any of the workers coming along will stop and have questions and want to know stuff. And I have yet to run into somebody who is in the oil and gas industry, which has taken obviously quite a downturn here, have any resentment to the fact that I'm driving electric. There might be a little bit of ribbing and some joking back and forth and so on, which I'm quite game to take. But it is kind of funny when I get onto some of these offshore drill rigs and be working away there and have someone walk into the room and look at me and recognize me as being the guy that's driving electric cars for the last 5 years, both he and his wife. And you're surrounded by a bunch of oil and gas guys on their rig. And that's it.
Right on. Well done, John. That's an
Thank you.
excellent presentation. You had some great dits in there, but of course, I think that comes with living in the province. You have to be able to tell a good dit. I love your media engagement and how you've really worked that well, and neutered your opposition. That was pretty good. I think we have a couple gauntlets we could throw at some people on this coast for sure. And I don't want anybody in this group ever complaining about having to do a service visit outside, off of this island. Okay? Newfoundland to Montreal, that's a hike. Going to Vancouver,
There's a ferry ride.
yeah, don't complain.
And it's not a nice ferry ride.
No, no, it isn't.
I've been told you guys have a nice ferry ride. No such thing.
Yeah, it's generally nice. Only gets canceled maybe 5 times a year, but yeah, no, that's pretty wild. Yeah, and how you've gone after the utilities as well and got them on your side. No, that's quite excellent. And of course, you're using one of David's favorite tactics for convincing people, called bums and seats.
Yes.
That's his nickname behind his back. Shh, don't tell anybody. So why don't we do some Q&A? And if you have some Q&A, throw it into the chat, and then we'll take it from there.
I also don't mind if people want to turn off the mic. Makes it more personable.
Oh, sure enough. Yeah.
You have to appreciate, for all of those listening, I get 0 feedback when I'm speaking. So it's because I can't see your faces when I'm presenting. So I can't even see if you move around, wave, yawn, put up your finger, I don't care. But so it's always nice to hear back from people.
Right on. Yeah, and you have a tough row to hoe, supporting EVs on that rock for sure. And you've had a whole lot more work to do than say we have on this coast. That's great.
Well, December 31st, there was 190 EVs registered, 195.
195.
Out of that, 390,000.
Well, that's great. We'll hope to see it's double next year.
Yeah.
Get those numbers up. I think I can't remember where we're at now.
More than that.
A bit more. But yeah, we got one question about where can we find your video on EV adoption?
Oh, the one for that was done by the Chevy dealership. Yeah, that's a good one. So they published that on Facebook, but I think it should also be on YouTube. Yes, let me see if I can find that. Is there a way I can just send that to you guys afterwards? Because it's just going to take a little bit of digging.
Yeah, send it in to Jim, and we'll look at posting it up. Sure.
Funny story. We did a 22-minute video. The guys who were filming it were very enthusiastic, and everybody at the Chevy dealership loved it. And then when it went up to Chevrolet, they did a flat no because it actually showed the Tesla as being quite a nice car. So they had to edit down a whole bunch of stuff that was the good bits about Tesla and just keep it on pure EVs. So what you'll see is the edited version. Yeah, and it's a tough crowd to do when you walk into a dealership, a lice dealership, and you say, hey, we'd like to talk to you or your sales staff about how to sell an EV. And you hear all sorts of enthusiasm from the sales manager, and then they never call. Yeah. The conversation has to be taken away from the dealerships because it's just not going to be in there. I mean, I totally get it. I mean, I support IT. I support business IT systems. If everybody decided that was what they're going to run their IT on, I'm not going to have much to do. And if somebody told me that they want me to sell that and make $10 per unit, there's nothing in that for me. So I'm not going to run and jump on it. Absolutely. Yeah. But in talking to the owner of the largest Nissan dealership here, who just put in a brand new $20 million dealership, I simply said to him, yeah, you're not getting a lot of interest in electric vehicles. At least that's what you think. I will probably differ with you a bit on that because I hear from people all the time that would like to buy the Leaf. But I said, what you are going to find is that your sales staff are going to be tied up for taking 4 times the amount of time to sell an EV than a gas car. And what we want to do is look after that effort for you, so that when they walk in your dealership, they're just going to tell you what they want you to order. And there's a little nuance in that. They're going to tell you what they want you to order means I'm not expecting you to stock it. I'm also not expecting you to convince them to buy anything else, because that ship has sailed. And we will be doing this. It's just, do you want to be told how we're doing this, or do you want to get on board and actually help get us helping you? And this particular fellow, when the conversation was done, said, okay, stay in touch. Let's see what we can do here. Because our next step now is to go to the Dealers Association and ask them for some money for our organization.
Right. Yeah. And it's, do you want us to be helping you to have a future, or would you like to just, die on your own?
Yeah, the only manufacturer that I suspect is not a member of the Automobile Dealers Association in Newfoundland is probably Tesla. So
Right.
if they don't help us, then I'll just simply allude to that lovely conversations I have with Tesla all the time.
Exactly.
I'm sure they'll help us if we ask.
Right. We got a great question here from Robert. And do you want to unmute there, Robert, and ask your question, or I can read it either way? You're still muted there, Robert. Nope.
Robert, just push your space bar and you can talk when you're holding the space bar down.
That was the space bar I had down, but that's technology is wonderful if it works. John, appreciate this for a lot of reasons. One of them is I have relatives in St. John's and also in beautiful sunny Dunfield on Trinity Bay.
Oh, right on.
You mentioned the government involvement in their interest and their growing their network, but what about commercial people, restaurants, hotels, drive-in bars? Well, sorry, not bars, but I mean, coffee bars, Tim Hortons. And the other thing is, since I've got the open mic, I'm going to say this to the general population, is a lot of your conversation, and I have nothing against Tesla, except I'm retired and I don't have $100,000. A lot of your conversation talks about cars that go 300, 400, 500K on a charge. What about a poor guy with a 2013 Leaf, and we get 130K between charges? I couldn't visit Newfoundland in my electric because I can't get past Medicine Hat in Alberta.
Absolutely. So in reverse order, so my wife's Leaf is a 2014. So we've got the same car in the family, and we totally get that. Thankfully, that fast charger network that they've done has tried as best as possible to keep the distance between the chargers down. But everybody was keenly aware of that, and that's why the Natural Resources guidelines were to try and space them every 65 kilometers. I guess the thought being that if you're driving from charger to charger, if you get the one that's not operating, you might be able to make the next one.
Yeah.
But yes, that's certainly a thing. Good news is the cost of the 400 kilometer range EV is dropping drastically. In just in our province, which we're not Alberta or anything like that. We're expecting between federal and provincial and utility rebates that should be finalized over the next couple of months, have $10,000 off on something like the ID4. Which brings it in at a $35,000 vehicle, 4,000 kilometers of range, and local sales service. It's going to tick all the tick marks, and it would be a logical replacement for those that want to do those long distances in that have the Leaf style needs and budget. We'll say it's not quite as cheap as some gas cars, but it's certainly close. So that's good news. As far as commercial involvement, you asked about the Tim Horton Donuts owners. So of my referrals for Tesla, one of them was a Tim Horton Donut store owner. My other owner, that's actually a client. So when I do IT support, I have clients in all kinds of different industries, which is kind of fun because it gives me a whole variety of people to bug and ask them why they're not driving electric. And they don't like arguing with their IT guy, so it's kind of fun. My other Tim Horton donut store owner has got a Rivian on order. They both want to put in chargers, but for them to get the clients in, they really need level 3. Our pricing on power is based with a demand charge for commercial. So if you put in a level 3 and someone plugs in, and the first time they charge at 50 kilowatts, their price per kilowatt just about doubles to 21 cents per kilowatt and stays there until their demand charge goes back down. So they had to be very, very careful if they host a level 3 charger in an environment like that. Level 2, no problem. They're very interested in it. Hospitality, I've been beating that drum for a while. The Hospitality Association of Newfoundland Labrador is actually my client, and they fully understand everything I've said about EVs and will slowly but eventually push it to their members. So I've taken it upon it to do it myself, and just last week sold level 2 charger to one of these places in Lewisport. To have it at their cottages that they sell, that they rent and so on. And we've had a couple go out the door like that for hospitality. The other thing is our utility, Newfoundland Hydro, was successful to getting the Natural Resources Canada EV charger agent rebate, which for a a publicly available level 2 charger with your parking lot signage and parking lot painting and takes payment, the whole works. That's a $10,000 per head type of installation. That's that, nice rugged install. So the NRCan rebate will pay half of that, up to $5,000, but they're going to pair that with one that's sponsored by the utilities to take another $3,000 off or $2,500 off. Once that's finalized, Drive Electric NL has been allocated about 50 of those to get installed over the next 2 years. So we're going to take that and we're going to approach one of those wealthy oil companies that have been operating around here and say, guys, we need $150,000 to cover the last part of these installs, and we'll sprinkle 40 of them all around the province in places that won't get one otherwise. So we're just waiting for word that that has all been finalized, and then we'll be approaching those particular operators to say it's time to green up your image and see what we can get there. I should mention, so who has cross Canada fast charging networks? Petro-Canada, no they don't. Canadian Tire, no they don't. Electrify Canada, or whatever they call themselves. Their map that was published just a couple of days ago. Newfoundland is in a gray color, nothing there. Tesla, no, not a one. There is, as it sits there right now, they're the only fast chargers in the province are the ones that are put in by the utilities. So anybody that says that they have a cross Canada fast charging network, the only people that get that credit right now is Sun Country, and those are level 2s. So food for thought. Please do not let them tell you that they're cross country. We've earned our place here.
Yeah, no, true enough. I'm just looking through a few questions here. Don had a question about your estimate being 5,000 kilowatts a year for an average car. That's what, 40,000 kilometers of driving?
No, 20,000 kilometers. So Natural Resources Canada says based on 20,000 per year to expect around 5,000 kilowatts. So
Yeah.
as a techie guy, I have metering on all of my key loads.
Yeah.
And so, don't take my word on it. So this is coming in from my EKM meters, and what I have highlighted right there right now is actually my hot water heater, which I recently replaced with a heat pump hot water heater. And just for your own interest, because I think there's some people, if you drive electric cars, you like to see energy efficiency. Look at the bottom graph there, June 2020 versus June 2021. I went from a resistive electric hot water heater to the heat pump one, from orange to green. It worked out to be exactly 1/4, 20 kilowatts a day down to 5. So if you have a home that has a room that's kind of warm all the time, maybe the sun is on that side, or if you're like me and you run servers, you can save a lot on that hot water. So this takes a while to refresh, but if you go to the Tesla charging, you can see I've got one that's going to take a little while to come up because it pulls it in from the meters, but I actually measure that sort of stuff each year. So there on the bottom, 2019, 5,903 total kilowatts used by the Tesla. To date, 2021, 3,296. And if we went to the Leaf, you'd see a fraction of that because it's a smaller car driven about 10,000 kilometers a year.
Wow, that's really interesting.
We're having fun with this.
Yeah, no, I think a lot of people are kind of surprised because we're trying to calculate on somewhere between 150 and 200, 16 to 20 kilowatts per 100 kilometers, and that's how you get to the much lower number. That's it.
Yeah, so 2020, 15, 19 total kilowatts, pandemic, you're not doing as much driving as we did 2019 with 2032 total kilowatts.
Right. Yeah, very interesting.
It was worth the investment in those meters because now nobody can argue with me as to how efficient switching to EV is. Those are just there for showing people really and truly this is what your cost is. That's the electricity that goes through that charger.
Right, and your utility charging setups, they're CHAdeMO and CCS.
Yeah, the CHAdeMO and CCS combo across the board on all of those. And then what they did is they also put a level 2 at each station as well. So if you are parking overnight or finishing off your last 10% of charging, you can switch over to that for 1/10 the hourly cost.
Right.
And a little bit of redundancy as well in the event there's a problem with the charger.
Perfect. Any other quick questions? Because we got only a couple minutes left before we're going to roll into Heather's bit.
I'd just like to comment or thank John. And I put in a hot water tank or heat pump hot water tank a year ago, and I've had the same sort of results. It's fantastic. But as I noted there, my total electric bill for my house, which includes heating the house with a heat pump and hot water tank and all the lights and everything else, fridge, stove, the works, is only about $1,100 to $1,200. So it's our EV, and that includes the car, by the way, as well. What kind of a system do you have that you're able to monitor by and know what your Leaf is using and what your Tesla is using, that sort of thing? You must have quite a fancy electrical panel installed in the house.
The brand is EKM Metering, and if you just went to ekmmetering.com, you'll see everything that I own. You will have to put a little ring. It's a ferrite ring that goes around the conductors and wire that back to a meter, and then you can add a little device that collects that information from all the different meters. So I've put a meter on each one and then back to a central device which the computer reads from.
Wow.
You'd sort of want to have a good comfort level with wiring that sort of stuff in. This is not a consumer type off-the-shelf product, but it's extremely accurate. And you're doing something right when the utilities ask you for your numbers.
Could you repeat the website, please? Could you repeat the website that you just?
Oh yeah, EKM. So E for electricity, K for kilo, M as in Mary, metering.com. And they sort of, whatever you want to measure, we'll help you measure it. So I actually have one that measures my water use as well. I'm on a well and septic. And it's been superseded though with the Moen product that does the whole home monitoring, which I also recommend. If you're saving energy, you might as well save water while you're at it. And you'll get in certain areas of the country, you'll get a discount on your insurance if you have one of those installed. Not in Newfoundland.
Right on. Well, thanks, John. That was excellent. Really appreciate you being on today. And I'm sure if we get any further questions, we'll fire them out in your direction.
Sure.
Yeah, could we get your email, John?
Sure. John, Jon, it's just 3 letters in my first name, at driveelectricnl.ca. So there's no periods, it's just driveelectricnl and then the period.ca.
Okay, thank you.
Right on. And look forward to seeing you on a Zoom later on.
All right, and I'll put the invitation as I do. If you're driving an electric car and you drive it into Newfoundland, and especially if you drive it across the country, stop in, charge up if you want, but you take the opportunity to vacuum and wash your car here, no problem at all, because generally if you've driven that far, you'll probably want to clean it. And we've been taken up on that offer by quite a few people who have done that trip and appreciate the opportunity to clean the car. So always happy to have people in, and if you're into any G&T or a glass of whiskey.
Ooh.
Thanks a million.
Maybe we'll do a motorcade across the country, David?
Yeah, that's it. What's another dozen EVs?
Yeah,
That's awesome, John. That's been really, really good, and a real pleasure to see you. There's one benefit of Zoom, I guess, is we get to connect across the country like this so readily.
I learn a lot doing these every time. So,
very good.
Great.
Okay, Tay. Well, we'll be in touch again, no doubt. Glenn will be in. Keep that contact going, I'm sure, and then we can do this again.
Perfect. Thank you very much. If you don't need me anymore, it is my supper time.
Yeah, absolutely. You're half hour ahead of us anyway, right?
Yeah. 4.5 hours.
Half hour ahead of the country.
Yes. My mother's up for her barbecued salmon, so I have a little obligation to look after.
Okay.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you very much, John.
again. Take care. Bye-bye, John. Yeah, so that's awesome. Once again, we've been the beneficiaries of an absolutely wonderful presentation here. Glenn.
I just wanted to quickly, one question I didn't get to was from Dory, and it was about why aren't EVs advertised more on TV? And the fast answer is money. The companies that the legacy internal combustion engine industry still makes almost all their money. Well, yeah, all their money from continuing to put out pollution vehicles. So they're still trying to push those. And while you are seeing more EVs being advertised, it's still not enough. We made the recommendation to government that EVs should have equal representation in advertising as internal combustion engine vehicles. And so far that hasn't happened. But yeah, it's money.
There are a couple of other reasons too. If you're watching television, televised sports, there's a lot of EV advertising. So they're going after that market. Lightning, GM's Lightning was heavily advertised during the Stanley Cup. And if you're watching...
That's a Ford Lightning, Jim.
Pardon me?
That's a Ford Lightning, not GM.
Oh, sorry, whatever it was. I'm not in the market for one. The Bolt was heavily advertised on during the NBA playoffs, which are ongoing right now. The other thing is, what I've been told by dealerships is they're holding off advertising because they don't need to. They're selling every single one they can get in.
And they don't make that many, so.
No, but you know, why advertise what you don't have to sell?
Right on. It's a good thing we're all marketing experts, eh?
Do you mean they don't have them because they're not being supplied with them?
Yeah, they're not building enough.
Oh, because I mean, certainly commercials would help create demand, but then that demand is no good if there isn't the supply. But,
part of it is capacity as well. Tesla, that does nothing but EVs, is got the third quarter was sold out July 1st.
Wow.
3 months of production ahead sold already. So they just can't build them fast enough, but they keep open. They're building factories And, you know, then it takes a year or two to build the factory, et cetera. So I think, and then there's supply issues. I noticed Ford shut down for a week after reopening for a week.
Mm,
They had been shut because of chip shortages. So there's issues with
interesting.
demands and
Okay,
different reasons. It's complicated, I'm sure.
great.
And I have a feeling the will to spend money on EV advertising is a bit thin,
Yeah,
but it's getting there. It's getting there. They're starting to realize the tone at the VW Victoria dealership when Jim and I went for the test drive was very positive about the EVs. Oh, they liked the fact that we were, you know, kind of off to the corner, not talking too loud about it, but
okay, that's helpful. Thank you. Thank you.
we're getting there. Right on.
There is one more thing about the average cost on every vehicle sold, just because of advertising, is $1,500 US. So all that great advertising we all sit and watch, we're paying for it.
And I'll mention quick that Tesla does not advertise, and they sell half the EVs in the world. So, or
Yeah.
at least in the North
So are
America.
the other manufacturers really serious about selling EVs, or are they still thinking of them as compliance cars?
Yeah, I think that's got to change, and it is changing, I think, but it's a good question.
Well, it
Who
is
knows?
interesting in that Chevy just said that they were going to market the Bolt EUV in all 50 states. So that's a good
There you
start.
Now, how much
If you're
money-
only,
How much money do they make on EVs versus gas cars per unit?
Nothing so far,
Because of the research and development, or because
other than Tesla. Yeah. Well, they're making the Bolt in a relatively small facility. They have limited capacity. The R&D and whatnot, they've got a lot of catch up on that. It'll probably be a few years before the main automakers are actually going to make money off of these things. And then there's no service, you know, for the dealers, there's no service money to be made. That's a big holdback on a lot of the dealers.
Right
I
on.
mean, that's an entire presentation on its own.
Yeah, you bet.
Where the money is, but
And
dealerships
Tesla
don't help
doesn't-
on profit.
Tesla doesn't have to advertise because it's got clubs all across the continent and around the world like this one, who do all their advertising for them. All the keen people like John and Arno and you guys, the Tesla owners do a fantastic job for them. So they put
Yeah,
all their
word-
money into R&D and building a better car.
Word of
Well,
mouth is good advertising.
Best kind you can get.
Good. Okay, folks, we got to keep moving on here. Let's, we can always chat about this more later. We've got one more presenter to go. And in the meantime, we want to switch over to Heather Kellington, who's our treasurer. And I think she's our vice president. I don't know. I think she's got 3 titles now. Anyway, Heather's going to
At least.
report on our next fun event. And then we have a presentation, which is kind of nice segue from what John Seary ended up with about home monitoring, because Richard Sharman is going to talk about that. Heather.
Good afternoon, everybody. And our next outing is going to be next Sunday, the 25th, leaving Costco far parking lot about 9:30 in the morning. So be there or we won't be there. Everybody should be able to join in on this trip because it's, I believe, just 65 kilometers. Is that what you said, Glenn or John? I can't remember exactly. So
55-ish.
yeah, somewhere in there, depending on how far you have to come to get to Costco in the first place. So we'll be meeting at the Chemainus Marine Gateway Park or Gateway Marine Park or whatever it's called, something like that. And
Cowichan.
in Cowichan, yes. And so directions will be going out later this week before that time. Bring your own picnic and your own drinks or buy there, stay for a picnic, bring a blanket, play some bocce if you have some, whatever. It's going to be totally a social event that is just whatever you'd like to do. Everyone can stay as long as they want, leave when they want. So any suggestions, please feel free to throw them out. Other than that, we hope to see all of you there just for a chance to get away on hopefully another nice sunny day.
Right on. I was going to jump in here, David and Heather, for a quick one. And I'm going to tag Jerry Delvell to give us 30 seconds on the Kona battery recall.
Okay, yes, I got a call from Hyundai last week asking me if I was going on vacation in August. And I said, no, I'm staying home. They said, good, there's 4 battery packs arriving. We've been told that they're on their way. When we get yours, we'll give you a call. We'll switch your battery.
Good.
So
Perfect.
I will give you more when I know more about this.
Right on. Thanks,
Oh,
Jerry.
well, I will add one thing, is that the issue with the Kona battery is for vehicles that were produced between May 2018 and February 2020. So it's a little over a year and a half. Doesn't mean that all the cars there have bad batteries. It means that the bad cells that were used were in that time frame. So not every car has bad cells. Not every car gets recalled. But anyway, I got recalled and I will get a new battery.
So they know where the bad cells are?
Well, they took the serial. The last time I was asked to go to the dealer was a month and 5 weeks ago. They took the serial number of the battery. And so that tells them what packs are inside and which cell numbers are in there. That's how they could determine.
Good. So if you don't get a call, it's because you don't need it.
Yeah, and the thing about Hyundai is that they're pretty good about this recall, or not just this one, but others. So those who have a Kona, who suspect that it was produced in that time frame I gave you, they can go on the Hyundai website, Hyundai Canada website, and they click on the recall tab, and then they are asked to put their VIN. Once you put that in, it tells you what your car, if there's any recalls for your car. So that's pretty professional. I kind of appreciate
Yeah,
that.
that sounds good. Thanks for that, Jerry.
Does this recall affect the Neros too?
Oh,
I have a quick question for Heather. Could you repeat again some of the things that you said? Are we not going to Lake Cowichan? We're going to Chemainus instead? Can't hear you. You're muted.
You're muted, Heather.
We did the Lake Cowichan trip already 3 weeks ago. So this week,
Sorry. I meant Cowichan Bay. I'm sorry.
oh yes, we're going to Cowichan Bay, yes.
Okay, I have friends who have a Tesla. They live in the Neuse Bay. They want to come and join. What do I tell them? Where do they meet up with us at what time?
Well, it should take us about an hour maximum, I think, to get there. So 10:30-ish at the Gateway Marine Park. Chemainus Gateway Marine Park, is that the correct name, Ben?
I think you should not say Chemainus because it's
Not
actually
Chemainus, yeah.
in Cowichan
It's
Bay. It's
Cowichan Bay, sorry.
right on the west edge of Cowichan Bay, the small village.
Exactly.
Right on the waterfront. There's a little boat launch ramp there, parking, and I think some picnic tables.
Right.
And so Cowichan Bay, yeah.
And Jerry, we put directions in this week's newsletter, and next week there'll be a map.
Yeah.
And the other
Super.
guy's ice cream shop is just down the street.
Lots of good eateries.
Yeah.
And a good bakery, good eateries, good
Yeah.
ice cream. I even think across the way there, you can pick up some 2x4s cheap if you sneak through the fence. They ship 2x4s to Japan from there. Big, huge ocean-going mother and ships loaded with 2x4s. Anyway, that's great, folks. So let's get on now with our second guest at long last. I think Richard Sharman has been waiting patiently, and I noticed John Seary was giving us some really interesting stuff on home monitoring there, which is a nice way to slide into Richard's presentation. Richard's in Souk, and I had a good visit with him a while back, delivering some t-shirts, as I recall, and admiring his solar panels on the roof of his house. And we did discuss a bit about home monitoring that day, as I recall. So, Richard, I assume you're still here. I've lost your picture, but you're around. Yeah, there you are. Yeah, good to see you. And thank you very much. I'll remind other folks to mute off, and we're on our way. Take it away,
Okay,
Richard.
right. Just going to share screen. Hopefully you see that.
Yeah, that's good.
Okay, good. So I'm going to talk about the Rainforest Eagle 200 Home Energy Monitor. What is it? It's a device that communicates with your smart meter. It talks to that and it uploads data to their cloud. It measures how much power is incoming to the house and how much is produced, sent to the grid. Why would you want one? Well, here we got solar panels installed in late February, and it came with a neat way of going into you log into the web, and it shows you what's currently happening if it's during the day. The daily graph is updated every 5 minutes, and you can download power and energy from the past. So it shows how much power and energy is being produced. But this doesn't show, is this more than we need or less than we need? Are we producing a surplus or not? And I talked to the guys who did the solar, and they said, well, it can only tell you what the panel is producing. Then I found there's something called the Rainforest Eagle 200, and it does show that. And I guess I should say I have nothing to do with the company. I just got the product. That's what it is. That's just to show you the size. It's a pretty small unit, and you plug it into the wall for power, and then either an Ethernet or a Wi-Fi connection. Typically, you buy this from BC Hydro, and it gets configured with your meter already installed because it has to know which meter it's talking to. So how do you use it? Well, you don't normally talk to the device itself. The device talks to both the meter and the cloud, and it sends data up to the cloud, and then they tell you what how to log into the web using a web to communicate with their server. The web interface has two display modes: live, the current situation, and history, and it also allows downloading data. The live mode, you can choose to see the last 5, 10, or 20 minutes, and it's updated every few seconds. So it gradually sort of slides to the left, and it shows how much power is being delivered. And if you have solar or wind or whatever you're producing, if it's a net surplus, it'll show you that. So the graph can be positive or negative, and it switches quite quickly depending on what's happened. And the scale changes as needed. So the height of the graph could be 500 watts or 15,000, and it'll all of a sudden jump as the history changes. It will also show you the current cost of the usage. If everything stayed the same for that instant, that's what it would be per hour, excluding taxes and the daily fee and all that. And it's quite fascinating to watch. For the history mode, you can see a graph of the day, week, or the month. And you can see what the power demand is in watts, or the energy, which is like the area under the graph in kilowatt hours. And for energy, it shows the cost for that period, whatever you've chosen. And if it's negative, it means you're building up a credit. You can also download data in a spreadsheet format for demand or usage for an arbitrary date range. So you can just sort of offload the data and crunch it. So here's an example, probably taken in the evening, because we were consuming about 200 watts. And then all of a sudden, we turned the microwave on, and it shot up by 1,050 watts approximately. So one use of the thing is just to find out how much you're using and what takes what. You know, we found that the water heater comes on periodically for 3,000 watts, and the kettle is 1,500 watts, and that's quite fun. Now, this was during the day. We had a net exporting of 4,500 watts initially. Then we turned the stove on high for a while, so that took 1,500 watts. And then we turned it down to medium, where every so often it takes spikes. This is showing, this was taken with a 20-minute view. So here I took a day, June the 1st, and I have 3 screenshots. The first is what I get from the solar panel, what it's showing. Then 2 from the rainforest history, the power and the energy. So this is a typical graph here on a good day, because here the house has, the roof is split at level, and the top part gets the sun just in the morning. The second part of the roof is in shade, so it doesn't get any for a while. And we got 42.76 kilowatt hours produced by the solar panel. For that day here, this is the power demand, and you can see that graph is essentially the inverse of the other one, which makes sense, that there was nothing for a while produced, and then around 7 o'clock it started producing data. Because I'm pointing at the screen, waving it with my hands, and of course you can't see it. I should use the mouse, I guess. There was a big spike about 11 o'clock, probably a combination of the hot water heater, which periodically comes for 3,000, and probably the stove or the microwave. So that is how much power is happening every few seconds. It sees how much power. The area under the curve is the energy in kilowatt hours, and it'll give you the equivalent graph by the hour. So the first few hours, there wasn't much heat on it during that day. There's a few minor things. Then at 7 o'clock, we started producing from the solar, and you can see around 11, there's a little bit less because we were using something, I don't know what. So above the line is a net consumption of electricity. Below the line is production. As I said, you can download data on either of those things. And these are spreadsheet variables called variable files. It shows the meter number, some encoded time and date fields, and values. The energy demand is updated about every 3 minutes. In other words, each row of the spreadsheet is a 3-minute difference, and the power is about every minute. If you look at the raw data, it's not very easy to read just like that. The first 2 fields are something to do with our meter, so that is the same all the way down. Then we have the encoded time, which was the 1st of June. The first entry is 1 minute after midnight. The next is just after 3 minutes. And the first value is 282 watts, and the second is 266, because this is in kilowatts. The energy demand, if you download that, it's a bit more interesting, and it shows both the energy delivered and received for every minute. The way it works is essentially the smart meter has 2 counters or 2 meters, and one is incremented every time there's a net influx to the house of electricity, and the other one is incremented when there's a net flow back to the grid. So these are non-decreasing. They either stay the same, or at any instant of time, only one of them can go up. But in the minute period, it's possible that they both went up, when for a part of the minute, there was a net influx, and a part of the minute there was the other way. So here, again, if we decode it, the first 2 fields are uninteresting. Then we have the time, date, encoded. And then the next 2 is the value of the meter for what's delivered and what is received. This is from the terminology is from the viewpoint of BC Hydro, what they're delivering to the house. So you can see between the second and third rows, they delivered to us 94 watt hours. And then a bit later on, we sent back 91 watt hours net. I just use a simple Ruby script to decode it and make it more, to summarize that particular day by the hour. For the watts, you can't add, it doesn't make any sense to add up the watts, but for that 3-minute period, you get the instantaneous value. So for each hour, you can say, well, this is the high, this is the low, and this is the average. More interesting, I think, is the demand in kilowatt hours. So between midnight and 1 o'clock, we consumed 0.12 kilowatt hours. We produced nothing. So there was a net download of 0.12 or 120 kilowatt hours. By the time 7 o'clock comes, you can see we're starting to produce. And after a while, we're producing and sending a lot more back to the grid than we got sent to us. Here's another day, 27th of April. It was a less sunny day, and I charged the car. It was charged for almost 4 hours. So again, this is what the solar thing shows. The same kind of shape as before, but with an awful lot of wiggles in it. And this is the energy. You can see it was, the basic curve is there, except there's a huge block in the middle of about 4 hours of roughly 12,000 watts when the car was changing. Now here you can see the scale is 14,000 at the top. On one of the first shows, I think it was like 400 at the top. And that's the energy. So on that day, we definitely bought a lot more than we sent back. So that's the Rainforest 200. Alternatives, well, the same company sells something called the EM2. No web interface, it's just a little device. And according to their website, it can show one of these two types of pictures. So if you're just interested in how much energy am I using at the moment, that's fine. BC Hydro itself has a website. I mean, if you log onto the website, there's quite a bit of data there you can get. On the homepage, I see the net consumption for the past 7 days. On Thursday, I charged the car and it wasn't very sunny. Yesterday, it wasn't very sunny either, so it wasn't so interesting figures. You can also choose a period. So I choose one that had the same date as I could show the pictures of, and hovered the mouse and took a screenshot. So this is all available on the BC Hydro's website when you log into your account. I mean, you can also get for the period the values in just numbers. So I just cut and pasted a little bit of it. Couple of problems. The first unit just didn't work. It took a while to convince them it wasn't a user error. But after that, they emailed a shipping label to put it on, ship it back, no cost. The second unit worked fine for about 3 weeks and then suddenly stopped. This time they sent another shipping label very quickly, and a week later it arrived. And that unit's been working fine. I noticed a few times there was no data, and paracycling it got it going again. And it turned out this was because we had a problem with our Wi-Fi router. So the unit was able to talk to the smart meter, but it couldn't talk to the network to upload it. It seems to recover if the Ethernet fails, but didn't seem to recover if the Wi-Fi. So I reported it to them. They were quite interested. What is kind of interesting is if it is unable to communicate, you can see the loss of data for about an hour and a half to 2 hours. When I noticed it and I'd taken that picture, I came back in about a couple of hours later and it had recovered it. So the data has presumably been cached probably in the meter because I had turned off the device. Conclusions, well, it's great fun seeing what's going on. It's quite helpful if you want to know how much does your TV cost, how much does the toaster cost, and so on. But if you have solar panels or you're producing electricity in any kind, it's really fun to see the current situation. So if you bear with me for a second, I will switch to, I have to stop sharing that. I'm going to show you it live. If you will bear with me for a second, I have to switch what I'm sharing. And I've lost the button. Oh, I covered it up. Okay, so this is the interface that I get with the solar panel. When we bought the solar panel, they put in a device, and this is what we get there, which just shows what the panel is doing. But if we switch to the rainforest, by default, it shows the last 5 minutes of history. So if I go and turn on the oven, for example, we should very quickly, hint, hint, there we are. It changed the scale, as you probably see. And now instead of standing for kilowatts, we are needing for kilowatts. And then this little button here allows you to say, this is a current day today. This is the week. And you can see I charged the car a couple of days ago. So it's quite fascinating. And sometimes you get some really beautiful pictures when all sorts of things are happening. And that's it. So that's it.
Man, Richard, that's really fascinating and very useful. Thanks for that. That was a great presentation. Did you remember to turn your oven off?
Yes, I just moved that.
I thought I could see some smoke, but I guess that's coming out of your head.
Yeah.
Anyway, no, that was awesome. And having just the solar app to follow myself, I know it's interesting. And you found something more interesting than Zoom council meetings to watch.
Right.
I do have a couple of questions, though. First of all, you're talking about what takes what. I like that. So John Seary was alluding to having these little monitors on individual circuits, so you could actually get the data from individual appliances. But what you're talking about, as I understand it, is that you're able to monitor so that, just like your stove demonstration, when things peak, you kind of get used to knowing how much they use. So for instance, the difference between a microwave and, let's say, the clothes dryer.
Yes.
So you're able to look at the graph and know what item is doing what. You can learn quite a bit about your use.
Yes, you can. Yeah. And if you leave it on the live view, you can see instantaneously. It took what, about 10 seconds for it to show up.
Right. So this is a great way to learn how to do all of that without having to go to such an extreme installation, monitoring installation thing. The other thing I just want to make a comment is the amount of data you get from electrical energy is remarkable. I mean, you imagine trying to track the use of the energy from your oil tank.
Yeah.
Or even your gas line. You know, it's not the same, right? So it's cool.
Yeah, it's amazing what information it's getting from the meter. Every minute for one and every 3 minutes for the other.
Yeah. So can I ask what you paid for that?
Oh, I meant to find out it. The including taxes and shipping, it was a little under 200.
Oh, so it's quite reasonable price.
Oh, yeah, quite reasonable. The shipping was quite expensive, about 35 for shipping. So
yeah,
it was a little under 200.
They should use an electric truck.
Yeah, right.
Could you please say the name of that program you're using?
Yeah, I'm getting
please?
there.
Okay.
Mike is asking also about the website you referred to.
Yes.
And do you want to just repeat or put up on the chat?
Let me get it from the. It's I'll put it in the chat, but it's Rainforest Automation, and they're from the West Coast. I think they're from Washington State. I don't think it's, but anyway, they seem to be the West Coast area, and you can get this through BC Hydro. You can order it directly, or I guess via eBay or something. But I went on the if you go on the log into your BC Hydro account under home energy monitoring or something, there's a link there to the Rainforest website, and if you buy it through there, you say what provider you got. Like they have a list of it's there's BC Hydro, and then there's the other one in BC. I forget the name of it.
And you had suggested they load the smart meter reference for you, then preload it.
Yeah, they configure it. If it comes with some numbers on stickers on the back, and if it hasn't been configured, you have to tell your utility, give them these long numbers, and they will configure it. Mike had a question.
Yes, Richard.
Go ahead.
I've been using the Rainforest system for years now. In fact, I was part of the trial that they put in. My problem is that the only way that I have of accessing the data is through an app on my mobile device. And when I was in the trial, I asked them if they would ever put the data up on a website so I could access it through my main computer, as well as doing what you're doing, which is downloading data so that you can interpret it in other ways. So my question, and that's why I asked the question about the website, and I did copy down surreptitiously the website that you had displayed on your live feed, the portal.rainforestcloud.com/user/home. So I imagine that what I'll have to do, and you can maybe confirm that, is try and log into that, and it's probably going to say, who are you and what's the serial number of your Rainforest device, etc. And maybe I would be able to use it.
With the unit, there was a small document, and they explained how you go on to the Rainforest Automation website, register an account, and then when you've registered an account, you have to give them what cloud ID it is. Each unit seems to have a different cloud ID, which is a 5-digit hex number.
Well, that's fair game, Richard. I think what I'll do is do as you did, is you contacted them either through the website or some other means, and see if something has evolved since the last time I contacted them, which was probably over a year ago.
Okay, they talk about a legacy device, and I wonder if that's what you have. On the website,
There's a good chance that's what it is.
Okay, I've got the website name. I put that in the chat for people who want to take a look at it.
That's perfect. Thank you, Richard.
And yeah, it's in there now.
There it is, rainforestautomation.com/. Anyway, that's perfect. Anybody got specific questions about Richard's system and his presentation? Anybody want to know more that can't be found? I'm going to go out and get one of these puppies. It looks like fun.
It
when
is.
I wake up.
It's quite fascinating just watching it. Yeah.
Yeah, the trouble is I wake up at 3 a.m. sometimes, but it won't be doing much at that time.
But then you go to the history mode.
Yeah, that's it. Reruns. Thank goodness for reruns. That's perfect. Well, I want to thank you again, Richard, for that presentation. Nicely done. It's so complete. I don't have any more questions. I do like that, the simplicity of that, where you watch what your appliances are doing. You just get to know by glancing at the graph. You go, oh, that's the toaster.
Yeah, right.
Thank you very much for that. And we know where to find you. You're here regularly. And when I first, so I really appreciate you responding into that interest of showing that presentation.
Thank you.
Good. Well, that brings me to a close, I'm afraid. We got time for some chat. Jim Henshaw loves hanging around. Any excuse to not have to paint more today. He loves hanging around to monitor this event and take it through to our 3 o'clock official close. And I know sometimes we run past that. So anybody wants to chime in, Bruce Stout, no doubt. And we got, it's Lynn Brown today posing as Eric.
Hello.
So Bruce, why don't you take it? And then we've got Eric to make comment. Go ahead. We'll just do this
Okay, I'd
easy
like,
going Q&A here or chat.
I'd like to apologize for being briefly at the meeting. My wife and I do a walk every day, and after 2.5 hours of Viva meeting, she said, we're going for a walk now. So off we went for the walk. I managed to abbreviate it because I got a message from Tesla saying that her car is ready for pickup. 8 to 64 gig upgrade is what's being done, or what has been done. I'm sorry I missed the story about the person with the Tesla Model 3 and the flat tire. I have a story that's maybe a little closer to home. Does everybody here know where Zabelis, BC is? Well, you know, there's a gravel road. There's a gravel road to Zabelis, BC, off the highway between Campbell River and Port McNeill. You also probably know there is absolutely zero cell service in that area. So there I was with my well-worn tires on my Tesla Model S90D, romping along the road when I noticed that the left rear, or rather driver's side rear tire, was losing air. So I pulled over to the side of the road, got out my pump, pumped it up a little bit, and got a little further along the road and noticed it was losing air again. Did that about 3 times before it dawned on me with that pump, there's the white goop I could put in. So I positioned the crack in the actual tread of the tire, because the rock had actually damaged the tread, at the lowest possible point, pumped in the white goop and crossed both my fingers and waited a couple of minutes, and then slowly, gingerly headed up to Port McNeill, and then from Port McNeill across to Sointula. And then the next day I drove back to Nanaimo and finally home with fingers crossed below the speed limit. And as you probably know, there's no place you can yell for help. Nobody's going to come out with anything. Now, when I go up to see my friend in Sointula, there is a spare Tesla wheel with an old tire on it in the trunk, because I've seen the value of having a spare wheel and a spare tire in an electric car if you know you're going to be someplace where there's no cell service, because BCAA isn't going to come for you if they can't hear you.
Good point. Good point. That road to Zabelis is all under reconstruction as well. At least it was 2 years ago when I was on it.
Well, right on.
Sure.
Eric, you were going to throw something in? You're muted, Eric.
I'm using the wrong computer because I'm at Lynn's house. Bruce could probably contribute. There's a guy named Harry Sawyer who 2 years ago he drove across Canada in his Audi, brand new Audi, in memory of his late wife. He's about to do.
Yeah, it's not. It's Mary Ann's Electric Drive.
Mary Ann's Electric Drive, and he did that 2 years ago. And he took about 6 weeks. This time he's going to do it again, and he's going to start in Victoria. He's going to dip his front wheels in the water down by Ogden Point, and then he's going to do it again in Newfoundland, or at least in Halifax. And he's trying to do it in 5 days. So I imagine they're stopping in hotels overnight, not racing right through.
Well,
but he was going to advertise to us. I don't know whether Jim's heard anything from him, but the plan was to leave tomorrow, but that got changed, and it may be while we're all going up to Cowichan Bay and not going to Chemainus.
Yeah, he hasn't responded to me yet, Eric.
Yeah, apparently he's got. I think Bill Hamilton or somebody else might have volunteered to do the first leg to Calgary with him. And the leg from Calgary to Saskatoon, I think he'll probably do by himself. And in Saskatoon, it should be picking up Kent Rathwell and doing the 3-day trip east. I don't know whether they're going to drive around the clock or not. I mean, five days, you probably have to drive around the clock. Bye, David.
I was saying goodbye to Jerry.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So I don't know what he's going to do, but he's got a website, Mary Ann's Electric Drive. You probably want to look that up. Soicher, Harvey Soicher is his name.
Right.
Yeah, and he used to work for O'Neill Surfboards as a rep. That's what he did for a living. Which would be kind of a fascinating job, to get paid to go surfing. I think he worked for O'Neill Sporting Goods. So
Richard,
Yeah.
fire away.
A question. The Teslas have apparently real wood. Are people doing anything to protect the wood with the heat recently? It's apparently the heat has been affecting the wood a bit. Do people use any kind of wood protection on them, like lemon oil or something? Is anyone
I don't.
I think I'm missing something there. Did you say Teslas have real wood in them?
Yeah, the panel apparently is real wood.
I haven't done anything to protect mine. It's
No.
bamboo. I figure it knows what to do in the tropics.
Because the mobile service was here the other day, and we asked him, and he said, "Yeah, it is real wood."
See you, Heather.
That's
If I
the
go
Model-
back to
I guess that's
Tesla,
my Model 3, yeah.
if I go back to Tesla tires for a moment, we get a lot of emails from people with issues with Tesla tires. And in a couple of cases, there have been people who've emailed us from up island who they were in Campbell River or Tofino or whatever, had a blowout. And it doesn't seem to be just a matter of being in remote areas. It's like when you do get to civilization, you can't find a tire store that carries them. And I'm wondering if maybe we need to figure out, you know, I don't know if we can put a link in or something in on our website for where you go for tires if you're somewhere where
Well,
Tesla can't get to you.
I got my my tires for my Tesla from Canadian Tire, 19 inchers.
Yeah.
Okay.
By the way, are a lot of you seeing these little inchworms here?
I see them, but not there, not
Yes.
here.
Yes, I do.
Well,
Yeah, we get them.
walking in the forest, which I just finished doing, they tend to like to attach themselves to my large amount of hair. So I just reached back here and, oh, there's an inchworm for you.
Oh, no.
That's all right. They're fairly harmless. And this one's going to go outside, so I'll come back in a minute or two.
Sauteed at low heat. They're
Bruce, I
delicious.
never had that trouble.
Geez, I wonder why, Lynn.
Back to tires. So yeah, there's the original equipment manufacturer, the OEM recommendations on tires. And when I had my the only tire puncture I've probably had in 30, 40 years, the sidewall of my Model 3 weeks after I got it. And I was up in Parksville. I couldn't locate another tire and it was going to take 4 days to get one of exactly that same type, you know, with the foam in it and all that other good stuff. And what I ended up doing was I went to a tire shop that had something that would fit the rim, you know, to at least the dimensions of the tire. And I just took that, and then my insurance had you know, a puncture rider on it. So I made the claim on that and put it back. And so I was not out of pocket very much at all. So. Is this thing on?
So did your, Glenn, did your original tire then, did Tesla replace, or whatever tire, Michelin replace the tire that had blown?
No, my insurance did. And it wouldn't be a manufacturer thing. What it was a screw. Somehow or another, I picked up about a 6-inch screw through the sidewall.
Yeah.
So.
It happens.
Yeah.
Yep. Yep.
It was, it's ironic. You know, the only flat tire I've had in 40 years, and the only broken windshield in 40 years. Both on my Tesla in the first 6 months I owned it. Ironic, not ionic.
Not ionic. Yeah, you could have had a Kia. It would have been ionic then.
That's right.
windshield sets you back or before insurance covers?
Well, we had a star on the windshield of one of our Teslas, and it wasn't a big deal until we had that really cold snap last year when we wanted to defrost the window. So I turned on the defroster. You should have seen the size of the crack that formed in the windshield from turning on the defroster with one just little star in the middle of the windshield. So fortunately, with ICBC, you can get your deductible of $200. So that several, I don't know what those windshields are worth. They're probably worth close to $1,000. A local glass company popped a new windshield in with no trouble at all. So
Yeah.
but they get the windshields from Tesla. That's one of the big advantages, I guess, of living in Vancouver is Tesla service stocks windshields. So I don't know, do they ever open the Tesla service in Victoria, Vancouver Island?
Well, we have Fernie's here, and then they have an agreement with Capital Glass, and then Capital Glass orders it in from Tesla.
Okay.
I wanted to go to something Jim had talked about earlier as well, and that was, when you're in the middle of nowhere and you're outside a cell phone range, is Tesla going to be able to fix that, or would some other manufacturer who ends up having some sort of communications on their car? And then I, of course, thought of Skynet and Terminators showing up to pick up your car and run it to the next town to get fixed. But then again, there might be the opportunity for perhaps Skylink, when it has global coverage, to be able to actually look down on your car and get those sort of signals.
Yeah, I saw an ad this morning for Volvo. It's the something 60 that's their new electric car. And they've done something with Google to give cars satellite access. So you can be anywhere and be in contact.
Yeah, there are little pucks you can get for when you're motorcycling or hiking or skiing or whatever. It's called Spot GPS, and you can set those to be able to send a message to a phone number or a text or an email just to your emergency contact who's still out there in the world and connected to everything, to be able to do those sort of things.
That wouldn't be a bad idea for Tesla to incorporate some of that technology in their vehicles. Certainly be able to talk to their Starlink would be a brilliant innovation for them to add to the cars.
Yeah, well, I'm sure they're well ahead of us on that if it can be done. And they'll look at the economics and what does that cost per unit and how often is it used and yada yada yada. So they know every time we drive out of range.
Glenn, what did the Spot units cost?
I haven't looked for a few years. $100 seems to come to mind.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it's $10 a month service fee though to have it activated.
Yeah, but you don't have to have it activated all the time though. So like I carry one on my motorcycle when we're off doing trips in the backwoods of nowhere.
Yeah, it's a good idea. There's another company that does something like that too. Apparently there was a sat phone company that had a sat phone contract that you could activate on a monthly basis for people that did offshore sailing.
Yeah.
And they use it to get weather reports through a special type of modem, telephone or modem.
That's one of the one of the I guess weak points of all these cars that don't have spare tires anymore. And we ran into that when we rented a Vauxhall in Scotland a number of years ago and had a flat tire on that, and it took basically half a day for a truck driver to come out to the Isle of Skye, pick us up and take us back into, I forget what the name of the town was, a little town that we went into. But I wonder about that. I'll try not to think about it with my current car. So
part of Arnold's problem was that he was not only out of cell phone coverage, but people wouldn't take him in because of COVID. So he couldn't get a ride into town. Once he finally did, then he could contact, but then the tow truck wouldn't. He had to be at the car to let the driver in and push the tow thing. So he couldn't ride with the tow truck driver again because of COVID. So the only reason he got to town was because a park ranger or something felt pity on him, explained he wasn't supposed to give him a lift, but he did because of the circumstances. So he ends up in town, and then he finally got the next day out to his car, met the tow truck. It was hours coming. They towed it into town. He's sitting there on the car. The tire was available, and but the Canadian Tire, wherever it was that was going to install it, wasn't open until Monday morning. And then it was the end of the day because they put him at the end of their list. So Friday at 1 o'clock discovered his flat tire, which had a hole which could not be repaired or plugged in any way because of the size of it. The tire was completely collapsed onto the rim, so he couldn't. And Monday at 6 p.m., he was on the road again. So it was a long ordeal. And actually, no, the tire wasn't available. His son was coming to meet him from Calgary. I think he was in Canmore, near Canmore. And his son came and picked up a tire in Calgary and brought the tire. It was ridiculous. But his solution was, and I thought it was a good one, is that they developed the run flat tire. So he could have gone at low speed for that 30K into town, would have solved a huge amount of the problem.
Well,
He had to rent a truck at one point to meet the tow truck at the car. He had to rent something.
well, the other thing that happened with Tesla in Vancouver is they've got a number of tires on wheels, and the wheels are painted in some kind of an orange color or something like that, and they can run a tire and a wheel out to you if you're in the Vancouver area, is what they've been doing.
Right.
So Tesla service has the ability through their service rangers to get you a tire and a wheel.
Well, I got stuck in Prince Rupert with a blown water pump in an old Buick once for 3 days.
Yep.
And that water pump had to come from Vancouver, and I told him to send it air freight. It was going to be $12, but the guy at the parts store stuck it on the bus. So it took
Right.
2 days for the part to arrive. That was frustrating, but I got to tour the harbor and had some great experiences. Little kids. So, breakdowns happen in remote places, and that was before cell phones. I couldn't blame cell phone coverage for my nightmare. Now we can blame Tesla. We can blame satellites that aren't hooked up yet and Wi-Fi that doesn't work. But I mean, flat tire, being stranded with an automobile is not new.
In 1957, before some
Here
of
we
you
go.
were born,
I was born that year.
Our family was on its way to Disneyland in our brand new 1957 Oldsmobile that had been a demonstrator at Collier Motors. And we got to Leavenworth, Washington, which is the middle of, looks like Armpit, Saskatchewan. And the fuel pump
Mountains.
packed it in.
There's no armpits in Saskatchewan.
Yeah, fuel pump packed it in. So we had to spend the night in this dumpy motel. I guess I'm 10 or 11 at the time. And it wasn't a pleasant, it was the worst part of that trip was having that fairly new to us car die. So I guess we've all got stories about cars that have let us down.
But just to be aware that the Manitoba and Alberta are the armpits of Saskatchewan.
Oh, okay, fair enough. Apologize for that.
Canadian Tire has run flat tires for sale.
Yeah, there you go.
With your Zabalas trip, Bruce, when we went up on a kayaking trip 2 years ago, one of our guys had a flat tire as well, and he get into Zabalas, and we were there for like 5 days, and there still wasn't anybody to repair the tire in 5 days.
Oh yeah, yeah.
So by the time we got back, I think maybe by the time we got back, someone had brought something in. I can't remember, but you're not a lot of service in Zabalas.
Right, Norman, what do you got?
Going back to the SPOT program, I am of the impression that the communication is very limited. If the SPOT program is activated, they locate your position very accurately, but that's about the only information which you can convey to them, where you are, but you can't delineate or describe what the problem is.
Actually, for a couple of years now, you can communicate, like send a brief text to your point of contact, as it were.
Yeah.
My wife does this too, and she's off camping in different places or hiking. This comes out as a text.
Yeah, that's what our kayakers do when they're off in remote places, going around the island or going up to Alaska.
Carol.
the new spot.
Yeah, Carol.
Just wondering how long your tires have been lasting on your Teslas. We were told at the 2-year check that we should be thinking about getting new tires before Christmas this year. Our car will be about 2.5 years old.
I think my first recommendation is to stop letting David drive it.
Okay,
I think-
what kind of car is it? A Model 3 dual motor?
Model 3, a single motor.
Dual motor. Well,
How many kilometers?
Probably only have to replace the rear tires.
We did drive to Winnipeg. No
What's your
car-
mileage? What's your odometer?
I
About
think-
45,000.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, that's about right. It's time
We
to start
getting there.
looking at them.
We just had them rotated.
Yeah,
Yeah,
you're getting there.
Yeah, 45,000 is time definitely to look at them.
Okay.
You're
Remember,
supposed to
your-
rotate every 8,000 kilometers,
Yeah.
not 45,000 kilometers.
I haven't done mine yet.
We, we, did a
40,000.
tri- we did the trip to Winnipeg and back. We had to go into the States because there weren't enough chargers. So we did I-90 and they were about 120 Ks apart. It was really easy getting across.
Yeah, it's a good trip.
But then going north through the Dakotas, just impossible. They didn't even have level 2 chargers half the time.
Yeah. Well, in 2015, we did it across Canada with the passports left at home so we wouldn't cheat.
Yeah.
And we had a 3-hour lunch in Wawa going both directions.
Oh, it's a neat town. Don't put it down.
Oh, I'm not
Glad you
complaining.
didn't.
It's just like going into a Thunder Bay at the Valhalla Inn for 3 hours on both directions too. A couple of, because 70 kilometers an hour is what you're getting. So
Yeah.
that's 210 kilometers to the next trip.
Being from Ontario, the rule was never get out of a hitchhike. When you're hitchhiking, never get out of the car in Wawa because you'll never
Exactly.
leave.
Yep.
Yeah. I was very happy to have a ride through there.
Hey, Glenn.
One question, what was the name of that device that you mentioned that has a GPS and you can send a signal?
Spot. Yeah, spot.
SPOT, spot. See spot run?
Well, folks, we're here at the 3:02 mark of the chat. So the official chat has come to an end officially. Not to say that Jim, as I mentioned earlier, has no social life, so he might be happy to stick around, but that's strictly his prerogative.
Well, I am minutes away from finishing my reno, so we're going to keep it short today.
Yeah, fair enough.
What are you
Richard,
renting?
you can. I think you can get spots at London Drugs.
Yeah,
Or
the
Best
London
Buy,
Drugs
one of the two.
advertises it all the time.
Cool. There you get advice for all kinds of things on this with this club.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for letting me interlope on your meeting again.
Yeah, you're welcome, Bruce. Good to have you. Great to
Have
see
a
you.
great have a great week or 2 weeks. I'll see you in 2 weeks.
Yeah, for sure.
You gonna come with us on the 25th, Bruce?
Well, interestingly enough, I will be on Main Island on the 9th, and on the 12th, I'll be driving up to Sointula, and on the 16th, I'll be driving home.
Okay.
So short island visit. Now, I do have a really nice sweatshirt that I think belongs to a hockey club in Victoria someplace. Let me just grab that and show you that, and maybe somebody can give me some advice. I'd like to get it back to them.
FedEx? The spot
Don't ask
program.
questions or tell us how he took it off a guy in a fight.
Send them an emergency message from through the spot system. Well, folks, that's been great. I'm on my way. Thank you again, Jim, so much. Again, our one and only Jim Henshaw, who runs the buttons, main master controller. And
Covered
we'll
in
see you
paint
next time.
at the moment.
Well,
but-
Sunday's going to be fun. The drive to, I haven't been to Couch and Bay for about 2 years, so it's going to be nice.